All right, I think we are going to get going. So, welcome everybody to the Auburn Blazer launch party taking place in my kitchen. It's very glamorous. I did consider trying to set up something like sort of pretending that I am indeed in a more glamorous situation, but I don't know how to do Zoom backgrounds, and the light is best in my kitchen, so this is what you have. So, welcome. This is something new. We've never done a launch party for a pattern before, but we thought that because there's been so much interest in the Auburn Blazer, and also because it's a much more, like intermediate level advanced pattern than we've done before, that people might want to hear more about it, have the opportunity to ask questions. And we also wanted to have a couple of people show off theirs. So Coco and Jennifer are going to be doing that later. And we're also going to tell you more about the kits and about anything else you really want to know. So I'm going to start off by basically telling you the basics about the Auburn Blazer. And at any point, you can ask a question in the chat. Some of them I will probably get to as I'm talking. And then if not, at the end, I will cover it then. So I'm going to start by showing you my lovely blazer. So I'm going to get up here. So this is my Auburn Blazer. Don't know how easily you can see that or not, but here we go. This is my blazer. So I made it out of a Harris tweed. I made view A, so it's the longer one with the pockets. And the really exciting bit about my blazer is the inside. So this is the inside of my blazer, guys. I feel like it's like a magical storybook land. There are clouds and cliffs and all kinds of things. So very good for flashing people like this. The other thing that I did on mine that's kind of exciting is I did a contrast undercollar, also Harris tweed, in a herringbone. So that is my one, but the nice thing about the Auburn Blazer is there are tons and tons of options. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of that. As I said, if you have questions as we're going, let me know. So there are two views of the Auburn Blazer. So the two views actually came about during the development process and especially during the testing process. And if you've been following, we actually did blog posts from the very beginning through all the different steps of making this blazer. It actually took over 18 months in the end, which is a long time. Most of our patterns don't take that long. But one thing that's really nice about that is it gives us lots of time to get feedback from different people, to consider different options and look at different things that we could do. So there are two views of the blazer. View A is one I'm wearing. So it is very classic. It hits at sort of your low hip. It has a single welt pocket, an angled single welt pocket, which I just think kind of looks sophisticated and nice, fully active, like works entirely. It has this notched collar. It has this piping all around the inside of the facing and the lining. It has a hem vent at the back, and it has sleeve vents, although you don't have to put those vents in if you don't want to. So actually, I didn't put them in here, but it has them. These vents are actually faux vents. It's a little bit easier to sew that way. But at the back, the hem vent is a real one. And then there's view B. So there's two things to note about view B. The first one is just shorter. So it hits more at your mid hip. And we made this because what we found is that it looks amazing with dresses. So we started trying on Auburn Blazers with dresses for the photo shoot. We were like, what should we do? And we were like, not entirely working, like silhouette wise. And what I realized is it's this classic thing where it looks really great visually if you divide your body into thirds, and less good when you divide it in half. So if you look at the view A picture, because of the jeans and her top, that's like a 1/3, 2/3 divide. And then you look at Shah in the pink blazer, we did the same thing. So basically it gives you this like very visually pleasing balanced look. And also, it's just another nice option depending on what you like. The other thing we did with view B is we took out the trickier bits. So, I love myself a single welt pocket, but if you haven't done one before, it can seem a little bit tricky. I'll get on in a minute to the fact we actually have some really great things to help you with that, but it can be a bit tricky. So if you want, in view B, We took the pocket out, we took the vents out at the back and the sleeve, and we also took some of the piping out. It's still around the back neckline, which is very easy, but we didn't have it in the whole rest of it. So those are the two views. As I mentioned, angled welt pockets, flat piping in here. And what flat piping is bias tape folded in half, right? Like, just to be clear, you don't actually need to buy piping, but it gives this really nice, like, sort of extra sophisticated bit. We have princess seams. Can you see those on my boobs? There we go. Very nice princess seams. Sort of a Cashmerette classic there. And obviously they come in our cup sizes from C, D to G, H. Another thing that we do often at Cashmerette is give you full bicep options, because it's a loads and loads of variation in arm size in people. So if your arm wouldn't fit in our standard sleeve, or our sleeve wouldn't fit your arm, we have another option. So we actually have included the bicep measurement of the jacket in the finished garment measurements. And actually we are just adding right now a body measurement for the bicep as well, so that you can look at how big your arm is, look at how big the jacket is, and you can evaluate if you want to use that. So that's the basics of the design and what it looks like. So I'm just gonna hold on, have a look. Is view B a different shape or just shorter? It's just shorter. Okay, so it's the same pieces, but it just has a shorter cut here line. So it's totally up to you. All of the pieces have lengthen and shorten lines on them. So if you want to do that, like you want to make any of them longer or shorter, you can. But if you simply want to crop length, then go with view B. So let's move on to fabrics. Now, fabrics is one of the things that, you know, can be a bit more challenging when it comes to something like a blazer, because, you know, it's not the usual, right? Like, it's a little bit different than what you're used to. So the amazing thing about the Auburn is you can make it out of woven fabrics or stretch woven or knits. So if you were following along from the very beginning with our blog post, we actually started with it as a knit blazer pattern. But we realized that there was just so much enthusiasm for having a woven one that we would try and make that work as well. And we did indeed. So there's lots of options if you want to go for a woven. You could go for a tweed. So I'm wearing this one is a Harris tweed, and it is really a perfect choice. Melton wool works really well. And that's actually what our kits are made out of, which Ayelet's going to tell you about later. Linen would work. Now, obviously, you know, depending on what you make it out of, it's going to have a different look. So if you use a lighter weight linen, it's going to have a more like unstructured, loose, flowy look, but would also look really nice. Cotton twill, you could go for jacquard. I'm really waiting for someone to make like a super punchy one, although you may already start seeing Coco's. You're going to see it in a minute, and it's a pretty exciting one. But, you know, at some point, someone has to make like a metallic weave jacquard one, and I'll get very excited. If you want to go for stretch or knit fabrics, the best options would be heavy ponte, and I mean like sort of the heaviest ponte that you can really get. The stretch factor actually doesn't matter that much. Like, it'll work even if the stretch is very minimal. So don't worry about that. You just want something that's chunky. A double knit, so this gray one that you're looking at right here on Gigi, that is a double knit. So that actually has worked super well. Now you can see that it is a slightly different look, right? So it's not going to be like as crisp at the edges. It just can't. Like, a double knit really isn't going to behave like that, but it's going to be soft and it's going to move with you. So there's lots of benefits to doing that kind of thing. You can also go for like stretch suiting or stretch gabardine, stretch sateen. The only thing I would say is that because you are applying a lot of interfacing to the fabric, you want to make sure it's not a fabric that's going to sort of should really shine or like give up if it's pressed a lot. So for instance, I mentioned gabardine, theoretically possible, but tends to shine if you press it a lot. So that's the only sort of thing I would be aware of when you're thinking, if you're going to use like a slightly alternative one, like, will it handle lots of ironing? So that's the outside. For the lining, so here's the thing. If you're making a woven blazer, you want a woven lining. So the lining that I just showed you in mine is a crepe de chine. It's actually from Liberty, super gorgeous. Not cheap, I'll be honest, but I really liked it. But also things like rayon Bemberg would work. And frankly, anything that's called lining, anything that's sold as lining would work fine for your blazer. And obviously it's an amazing opportunity, right, to use something super exciting and like have something that's like a little bit cheeky on the inside. Our kits have a silk cotton voile in them, and that's like another lovely option. Now, if you're making a stretch one, you want to have in the body of the blazer a stretch fabric as well. Probably the best option is like an ITY, which is a type of jersey fabric, a type of stretch fabric. Often wrap dresses are made out of that, or a slick jersey. You want something that isn't going to stick and catch on you too much, because if it catches on your body, it's going to cause your blazer to sort of like not sit very well. However, for the sleeves, even if you're making a knit one or a stretch woven one, you want to use woven sleeves, and you want to use something like the crepe de chine or rayon. The reason is you really won't be able to put on and take off your blazer easily if you have something like jersey in the sleeves. You're going to find that any like sweater or top is going to like catch and really not be very easy to wear. Also, we're not relying on the stretch in the fabric for this pattern because it works for both wovens and stretches. You're not relying on the stretch, so you don't actually need it in the sleeves. So that's the recommendation if you are going to make a stretch one. And the fabric requirements in the pattern tell you the difference. So they give you the difference between the body of the blazer and the sleeves of the blazer, so you can do that. Christina is asking, will ITY or jersey lining sag, or is it best to have no vertical stretch? Good point. Yeah, you want minimal vertical stretch. So like a classic ITY or jersey usually doesn't have much vertical stretch, but I would agree. That said, you know, you can also sort of evaluate. You want something obviously with like very good recovery that doesn't stretch out if you're going to use a knit lining as well. So there is some more fabric that you need. So you need pocketing. Just like it's like, you know, like when fashion people say a trouser and you're like, I think you mean trousers. So pocketing is fabric for a pocket. Now you might just think, well, I'll just make it out of the lining. Like I have this nice Liberty silk, I'll make it out of that. We don't actually recommend that because it's not really strong enough for a pocket, especially if at any point you're going to use the pocket. Now the pocket is not visible from the inside, right? So you don't have to worry about that. But if you ever want to put your hands in it, you know, no hole to poke through, and you want it to be, you know, secure. So honestly, just like classic quilting cotton, shirting, like cotton, anything like that would work really well. Then you need bias tape. Now, I discovered something as we were developing this. I got very confused for a little while, I will admit. It turns out that when bias tape is sold, when they tell you the width, it's when it's folded up. Not all the way, but as it's folded as it's sold, which means usually that the sides are in. But if you're making bias tape, you measure the entire width of it, right? So when you're doing this bias tape, if you're buying it, you need to buy either 5/8 of an inch or 3/4 of an inch wide single fold bias tape. All the metric, by the way, is like all over the instructions and everywhere, so you can get that easily. Or, oh look, I did it inconsistently. Look at me. So really good there. So, or you make at home 2.5 centimeter, that's 1 inch, to 3.8 centimeter wide strips. So you have the option. If you want to make your own line bias binding, you can. And if you want to buy it, you also can. Really, any kind of bias binding works. For most of ours and in our kits, we're using like a satin type finish, which is sort of like a classic what blazers tend to have in them. But you really can use anyone if you want to use cotton or you want to use silk. Like it's really up to you. But I think it's a really nice additional thing that you can put in your blazer. So on to interfacing and notions. So this is where for some people it starts to get a little bit scary because we do have a certain amount of tailoring inside the blazer. So here's what you need. You need 2 types of interfacing. The first type is weft interfacing. And what that is woven interfacing. So what I mean by that is cheap types of interfacing, like typically, for instance, Pellon, is like paper. It's made like paper. So it's tiny fibers that have been sort of mixed up into a pulp, laid out and like pressed flat. And it's a non-woven is what it's called. So it's the same as like paper towel in your house, right? Like it's made in the same way. That is not great in clothing because it doesn't move like real fabric, because it doesn't have like warp and weft threads in it. Weft interfacing is made like fabric. It has warp and weft in it. And then it has had these sticky dots put on the back so that you can fuse it to your fabric. So you can get weft interfacing in the US, like fashionsewingsupply.com is a great place to get it. You can also get it on places like fabric.com. In the UK, you can get it from places like William G, and I believe that Minerva also has it. So there's lots of options, but I do recommend getting high quality interfacing because it can really affect how your blazer looks, but also cheaper ones will often start bubbling and coming away from the fabric. And then all of a sudden your blazer is ruined and you don't want that. Now, in addition, you need some knit interfacing. The knit interfacing goes in this part. And basically it allows a really nice curve in the collar and you don't have sort of like a hard edge. So you need a smaller amount of knit interfacing. So that is stretch interfacing. It's often just sold as knit, but sometimes it's called like tricot interfacing is similar. And you want a medium weight of both of them. Now there's a third option, and you don't have to do this, but you can. There is a chest shield, which is here inside the blazer. Now, one of the reasons why, and it's really important when you have big boobs, is from the side. Let me pull my boobs in here. I do not have a straight line from my shoulder to my boob, right? Like I go in. I mean, it's a fairly full bra, so there's a lot of boobs going on here. But there's a scoop here. What the chest shield does is fill that in. So it basically creates this really nice smooth line. And in really high-end handmade blazers, like there's huge amount of like stuff going on here. If you want a bit more structure here, you can use Fusible horsehair canvas. So I have that in here, and we have it in the kits as well. It's much chunkier and thicker than a weft interfacing. You only put it here, but it's a really nice thing to do if you want to just take your blazer up another level. One person asked about showing the knit interfacing. Ayelet's going to show you all the different types in a little bit, but I will say it doesn't look any different. Like you wouldn't look at it and be like, oh, that's knit interfacing immediately, because it's a bit like when you buy a knit fabric, right? It's been woven like this, but unless you look very, very closely, you're not going to see it. The key thing is that it stretches. So those are the interfaces that you need. But we still have a few other things. So you need a front button. On mine, I actually used a fabric covered button. Can you see that? I don't know if it's coming out. There we go. You can buy kits to do that. And it's a really nice thing to do on something like a tweed, where I didn't want to suddenly just have like a black button or a button that didn't really fit. So you want like 1 to 1 1/4 inch button there. If you're doing the sleeve vents, you have 6 buttons for there. Then you need shoulder pads. So shoulder pads are key. And even when you make your muslin or toile, you need to put shoulder pads in, because the fit is assuming that there's shoulder pads in there. We recommend 3/8 to 1/2 inch thick. I wouldn't go much more. It's going to start looking a bit weird. But if you have something that's less than that, you're not going to get this like classic blazer shoulder look, which I am currently showing you. So really it's the classic ones that are straight at one end and like this. They're almost like a D, like that's the sort of normal shape type ones you want. And often it says that they're made for jackets or blazers. You don't really want a coat one, because coat ones tend to be much, much thicker. So you want a pair of shoulder pads, doesn't matter what color, you're not going to see them. And then the other thing that we mentioned is straight grain fusible stabilizing tape. That sounds like a tongue twister, that. So basically there is a strip of tape from here to here on the inside. And what it does is help. Can you see how crisp this is just falling on me? Like it almost doesn't matter what I do. It's coming back to like a nice line. It's there. And what it's basically doing is slightly easing in the outside fabric and forcing it to roll there. Now, this is not the same as fusible bias tape. That will not achieve this because it stretches. It has to be not stretchable. So in the US, there's a brand called Design Plus Tape, which you can look up and buy. I will say it's another big benefit of the kit that we provide you with this, because we just provide you with what you need and you don't have to like buy like a reel of 10 meters. If you don't have that tape, if your weft interfacing doesn't stretch at all, and by that I mean it doesn't even have mechanical stretch, you try and it doesn't move, you can also use a strip of that. But I don't recommend skipping it, because it's actually really important to getting everything to work. Okay, I'm going to check in on the chat, see if I have any more questions. So is the piece up here included in the pattern? Yes, it is. It's called the chest shield. So in the pattern, it tells you to make it out of weft interfacing. And what you're doing is you're laying interfacing on top of interfacing. So you have your fashion fabric, the whole piece of that is interfaced, and then another piece is interfaced on top of that for the chest shield. Also the hem, there are pieces for the entire of the hem interfacing, and you're making layers. You're making like a sandwich of pieces. Can the jacket be made machine washable? Theoretically, I guess my only thought would be shoulder pads. Like if you wash shoulder pads, would they dry out well? You'd have to do your own experiment on that, I think, to see. But theoretically, if everything you used was machine washable, maybe, yeah, worth a go. Okay. Oh, and then there is one more thing. Nicola mentioned this. So we have points in the instructions where we say, if you'd like to go another level, here's what you could do and when. So for instance, I have a bound buttonhole in my blazer. So that is not in the instructions, but we have a link in the instructions to a really great tutorial, photographic tutorial on the blog of how to do it. Sleeve heads is another thing. So I've put a sleeve head in this, which is a strip. I actually bought it. You can buy sleeve heading, but you can also use a piece of fleece on the bias, and you sew it in underneath the shoulder seam around the arm side, and it gives this a bit more structure here. It's optional, you don't have to do it, but again, in the instructions we say, if you want to use a sleeve head, this is where you would put it. So again, the nice thing about this blazer is it's actually been designed very classically. So what that means is if you would like to do like every single thing to it, right? You'd like to do pad stitching and all that, you actually can, but it's up to you. What we've done is shown you how to get it to this point, but if you want, you could take it further. Okay, so when it comes to construction, a full photographic sew-along is coming soon. A lot of people asked us about a video class. Unfortunately, as long as I remain a refugee in the UK, I do not have access to do that. But Ayala, with other members of our team, has put together a really great step-by-step photographic sew-along. So in the next week or two, you are going to see that appear on the blog. We also have the bound buttonhole tutorial that I already told you about, and an amazing, dare I say, I think the best one on the internet, Welt pocket video, which our team member Mallory put together, which if you are concerned about doing that, I swear, like, I wish this had been available before we developed this pattern, because it would have been easier for me to figure out how to do it. But it's a very, very clear tutorial. So check that out, linked to in the instructions. And then before we get on to looking at other people's blazers, much more interesting than hearing me speak, on sizing and fit. So first of all, how do you pick your size? Go to our size calculator. So cashmerette.com/sizing. You're going to put in your cup size, your high bust, your full bust, your waist, and your hip. Use your sitting waist and hip, okay? Because if you want to sit down in the blazer when it's done up, you need to accommodate those measurements. So that will tell you what size or sizes to make. Now, there's a caveat here. Consider if you're going to wear it buttoned up or not. So someone already picked up on this actually when we talked about my measurements and what size I made. So my measurements right now would put me in the 20GH, but I made the 18GH. Why? One, I'm in the process of stopping breastfeeding, so hopefully my boobs go back down the 2 inches that they grew in the last couple of years. But second of all, I will never do this blazer up. I can, but I will never do it. It isn't my style. I have no intention of ever doing it up. What that means is, even though my waist is too big for the 18, it doesn't matter. So you can see here, it's like a totally well-fitting blazer on me. Now, I can do it up. This theoretically is too tight here. Like if I'd made the proper size, I'd have another couple of inches here. I can do it up, don't intend to ever do that. So if the sizing calculator tells you, for instance, you need to grade up one size in the waist, but you never intend to do it up, you don't have to do that grading. So what you want to do is make sure you have a good bust fit and shoulder fit. But if you're never doing it up, you don't need to worry so much about the waist and hip. Now, there's limits to that, right? So if you need to grade up like 6 sizes for your hip, yeah, you probably want to grade up a bit, or it really isn't going to look as it's intended. However, if like me, you're between 1 or 2 sizes and you're never going to do it up, you can feel free to make the smaller size. We are also going to have a bunch of fit blog posts coming soon on the blog. And that's going to include how, you know, the fitting of princess seams. We already actually have a bunch of resources on fitting princess seams, but we're going to link to all of them. What you should be looking for in the shoulders, the back, the sleeve, and so on. I do also have a workshop, Fitting for Curves, a full video workshop. So if you like me blabbing away and you want more of this, and you think I would like more of this in my life, yes, head over to workshops.cashmerette.com and I will oblige. At this point, I think it's about 4 years old, so I look really different. And we were in a cave at the time, my studio with no windows. But I would take you through all kinds of fitting, and that could help you on the blazer too. So, whew, that's the blazer in 27 minutes. Let me have a look at if we've got any more questions for now. What about if I have a tummy, do I make alterations only on the front pieces? So if your hip measurement is predominantly on the front, yes, you could do a full tummy measurement, or you could theoretically bring the front pieces out here to a bigger size. So you could end up coming out further. That would be another option. We 100% recommend making a muslin. You do not want to make a blazer without making a muslin, because that is so much time and potential fabric lost if you didn't get it quite right. So definitely make a muslin, and that's when I would sort of evaluate those things. Okay, people talking about things. Can you put the pockets in view B, or is it too short crop to include pockets? You can, you would need to shorten the pocket bag, because otherwise the pocket bag would poke out from the bottom of the hem. We did also discuss, you know, you could put patch pockets on. There's all kinds of other pockets you could do if you want. You know, this had already taken 18 months, guys, I'll be honest, like I didn't want it to take even longer at that point. But yeah, all kinds of possibilities. Okay, so now I'm pleased to invite our very special guest, Coco Chat, who, funnily enough, we just discovered is about 25-minute drive from where I am right now. We both live in and around the lovely Cotswolds in the UK right now. And Coco is going to share with you her amazing lemony one that she put together in our first round of testing. So welcome, Coco.
Thanks, Jenny. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name's Coco. So this is my blazer I made in December. So I was in the first round of testers, so I gather there's been a few small tweaks since then, but this is kind of mostly what you'll see now. So I will step back and show you the full thing in a minute. I made the 12GH. My measurements fit almost exactly into that size, very fortunate. So I made that one. The only adjustment I made was to shorten it because I'm 5'3", so I took 1.5 inches out of the body. I did also have to shorten the pocket bag slightly to accommodate that, so it didn't kind of bunch at the bottom of the hem. But that was quite an easy change. Basically, once the pocket bag was folded in half, I did a couple of lines of stitching, about 1 inch up from the bottom to stabilize it, and then just chopped it off with pinking shears. So this amazing fabric, which I got about 3 years ago and then hoarded and didn't know what to do with, was very precious about cutting into, is a cotton sateen. It's a print by Telio. Where I got it from, which is true, fabrics don't have it anymore, but there are other places that still stock it. So I will step back and show you the kind of full length, what it looks like. So
glorious. Look at those lemons.
I just want to dance in this jacket. I just can't help myself. It's yeah. So that's the full jacket with the welt pockets, which I'd never done a welt pocket before, but was surprisingly quite straightforward with the instructions. And And yes, as I say, I shortened it slightly, but that's just a length adjustment, didn't change any of the styling lines. And I really want to make another one. I've got a hankering after Viola Davis in How to Get Away with Murder, wore some amazing jackets, and she had one with like gold foiled spots on it. So I want one of those. So that's next in the plan.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks so great. Now, I will say, like, the apparent length of Coco's is very much what the view A is meant to be. So, like, the proportion you can see on Coco is actually very accurate, even though she shortened it a little bit. But yes, I already mentioned to her, but like when this one came through on testing, I was like, oh yeah, we've got a good pattern here, because look at this. Thank you very much, Coco. All right.
You're very welcome.
Maeve is just asking, can you move your arms around easily?
Yeah, quite happily. So I can lift kind of up to shoulder height before it moves. And then if I do that, it kind of moves the shoulder pad a bit. But yeah, happily that way. And yeah, no issue for me.
You need to like direct a plane. You're going to be fine in your blazer. Or do semaphore. Does anyone do semaphore anymore? I feel like I'm highlighting my childhood of the 80s. Okay, yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much, Coco. All right, and now we're gonna head over the Atlantic to my lovely friend, Jennifer, who's in Virginia. So let's turn off, hold on. Are you on, can we hear you now?
I think so.
Oh, perfect. All right, Jennifer, over to you.
Marvelous. So I'm so excited to be here. This is by far the fanciest thing I have ever sewn for myself. I made it in a cotton velveteen, which has all the gorgeousness of velvet, but a lot more structure, and is also machine washable. So because I am very lazy about dry cleaning, will probably be experimenting with a gentle wash at some point in the future. I also lined it with a silk, oh gosh, I don't know that I've ever said this word out loud. Silk habitoy?
I actually don't know. Habitoy? I mean, that's what it looks like.
I'm not sure, but like
or something. I thought they were Gooddays for a long time. Turns out they got it, so it's not. I'm not one to speak.
Which is a dream to wear, but was a nightmare to sew. If I was going to do this again, I would definitely do a gelatin wash on the slinky lining, because there's a lot of different pieces. If I was sewing it in the winter when it was like full of static electricity and it wanted to move all over the place, it turned out fine. I was really worried that I was going to cut off grain line but it turned out great. And I also did a piping in I don't know if you can see this, in a faux leather, like a bronze faux leather, which is just delightful. I think it works definitely an average bias tape, but it works because of the thickness and structure of the velveteen. I will say one key thing about the velveteen, or if you're thinking about like, ooh, I also would like a velvet or velveteen jacket, is it does not press very well, right? You don't want to crush the the loft, I guess, of the fabric. So I ended up using just a ton of steam with just a little bit of pressure so that I wasn't crushing it. But yeah, I made a size 20 EF, graded out to a 26 at the waist and hips. One thing that I didn't know that I learned during this process was that when you have princess seams, you don't actually grade the individual pattern pieces. You grade out only at the waist. Jenny has like a great link that she pointed me to, and that really helped keep all of the different pattern pieces on grain, and it fit a lot better than previous princess seams where I have just graded the pattern pieces out themselves. So I will stand up.
Lovely.
Maybe I can turn this and get a little further back. So, oh, I wish I was taller.
Gorgeous. And you did 2 buttons, right?
I did 2 buttons because I am a rebel.
Such a rebel.
Yes, I did 2 buttons. Also, I am probably never going to button this for real. I also did a faux vent sleeve. I just sewed, I think I actually made it as a real Gosh, it's so hard to see on black. It's real, but then I actually just sewed the buttons through because I was never going to open them up. So there's no buttonholes in the sleeves. So I can button it. I think I'm a little bit like where Jenny is. I can button it, but I probably won't really ever do it. And I really like this velveteen because I feel like it works very well as a blazer with jeans, which is what I'm wearing.
Yeah. Yeah. When I told my father I was doing a blazer sewing pattern, he's like, what, like navy with gold anchor buttons on? Like, what? When are you going to wear that? And I was like, Dad, you wear it with jeans. Like,
that's exactly right. Exactly right. One thing is my arms, and so I feel bad. Like it's so hard to see the gray or the black. My arms are right in between the full, the regular sleeve and the full bicep. And I thought about it and I realized because I am a sweaty person, I am never going to wear this with a sweater. Like I might wear this with a thin sleeve underneath, but I am never going to be wanting to layer this over a winter outfit, right? I will put a tank top on and this will be the primary layer. So I went ahead and just went with the regular sleeve. It is very comfortable. It feels a little bit tight when I, fully, like I can feel it starts to get snug there, but it doesn't restrict my movement at all. It's a very, very movable. And it's so comfortable. Like I have never put on a blazer that I felt like I wasn't constantly like adjusting over my boobs. Which is sort of a revelation.
Stays there a lot more than normal blazers, that's for sure. Cool. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I love it. So there's a couple more questions came up I will get to before we run to ILS. So Maeve asked, how long does it take to make it? Now, there's a degree to which this is how long is a piece of string, because like depending on your skill level and your speed and how fast you normally sew, I will tell you right now, when we were estimating at Cashmerette, we estimated 20 hours from beginning to end, right? From like cutting to finishing. So when we were like paying sample makers, we were paying for 20 hours. However, someone in the Facebook Auburn group, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, made one in like a day and a half the other day. And I don't think that they worked like 18 hours a day. So it's possible to make one faster depending on what you want to do. But there are other people for whom it might actually take a couple of weeks. There are a lot of pieces because there just are in a blazer. And you will find a substantial amount of the time, maybe like a third of the time, will be before you even start sewing. Because you have to cut a lot of pieces, you have to interface a lot of pieces, then you have to interface them again. You may need to pre-treat. So if you're using wool, you need to steam it really heavily before you start sewing with it. So there's a lot of that. One thing I have heard, there are two things you can do to sort of speed it up or do things. One tip I heard at one point is to make the lining first and then do the outside. And that can actually psychologically make you feel like you've gone faster because you finish the outside and the lining's done. Just put it in. The other is if you're a more confident sewer, you can batch it and sew it in a slightly different order than in the instructions. And that's what I did for this. So what I did is sewed every seam that I could until I hit a point where I wouldn't be able to because they would intersect. Then I would go and press all of those pieces. Then I would pin anything else I could do. So for instance, like I'm not constructing one whole sleeve and then another whole sleeve. I'm constructing them both at the same time. But even beyond that, at the very beginning, I was doing bits of the collar and bits of the front and bits of the back and bits of the sleeve. It's a slightly more advanced approach. You need to really understand what you're doing. If you're the kind of sewist who's like, next thing, okay, do that. Next thing, do that. Then no, this approach isn't going to work very well for you. But if you're a bit more confident and you understand fundamentally how jackets go together, that can speed it up a lot. So I think us being able to do everything in 20 hours is also helped a little bit by doing that technique. Someone was asking about grading. So I won't go into it here. We actually going to have, we have a whole blog area called Grading Between Sizes. Go to cashmerette.com/grading and it'll show you. But basically, you don't want to be grading between sizes here because it throws the curve off, okay? And you'll end up with like things like pulling out under your boobs. You can end up with distorted seams really easily. So instead, what you do is you calculate the difference between the sizes you want, and you add at the side seam around the panels. It sounds a little bit confusing. It's actually a lot simpler than trying to grade every single piece. And it works because we've done it many times. In fact, both of the models that you see have both had graded between sizes blazers on them. So there's full help. And in the instruction booklet, we have links so that you can go and have a look. How much sleeve ease do you recommend? It's designed with 2 inches. As always, you can do whatever you want with that. You know, like if you want to do less, you can. If you want to do a full bicep adjustment, a further one, or you want to go upper blazers, an upper sleeve size, you can. It's a sort of cheap version and like officially not recommended. But let's just say that you're a size 18 and your arm is 100% a 22. Like there's no way you're going to fit in the 18, even the full bicep. You can make the 22 sleeve. You just need to use the 22 arm size as well. So you could use an 18 here, 18, 18, 18, 18, and then here, go to a 22. Is it going to be 100% perfect guaranteed? No, but you could do that, make a muslin, see if it fits, and then you might, for instance, have to do a bit of a narrowed shoulder adjustment, but that is an option. In terms of what fabric to use for your muslin, it depends on what you're going to make your final blazer out of. So if you're making it out of Harris tweed, you want to find something of a similar weight and stretch. That's the key thing. So some kind of like nasty poly blend that's like a little bit chunky would be totally fine. I actually made my muslins out of muslin. That is fine, out of muslin, the fabric. That is fine. You just have to remember that it will never look as good as the final thing in a heavier fabric, okay? So people sometimes get in this situation where they try and fit in muslin the fabric and they go, oh, I can see a little thing here and a little thing here. And it's like, as soon as you make that out of wool, that's disappearing because the heavier fabric doesn't show so many like little pulls or little things. So my muslin of this did not look like it perfectly fit me, but I knew that it was where it needed to be, that once it was in the final fabric, it would work. If you're using a stretch fabric or a knit fabric, you need to use a stretch or a knit fabric to make your muslin too. Okay, so the final order of the day is over to Ayelet, who is in Boston, where I'm looking forward to getting back to at some point this summer. And Ayelet is going to take you through the kits. I mentioned at the very beginning, like one of our linings has already sold out. So although it's pre-order, there are limited numbers. So if you want one, definitely pick it up. I'll tell you more about the code at the end. Over to Ayelet.
All right. So I'll start by showing you what it looks like all sewn up. The screen here. So this is the blazer all sewn up. This is a Melton wool blend that we have for the main fabric. We have a bunch of different colors and I'll show you that in a second. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, looks good.
Cool. Here it is from the back.
A lovely Alvathorn mannequin. Yours for a bargain, $5,000.
So you can see the vent here. So we've included enough fabric and everything to make view A, which is the one you're seeing here, but you can also, of course, make view B because it requires just a little bit less. So let me open this up here so you can see. So this is one of our lining options that we have with this particular colorway, but also with a couple others. You can see the nice bias piping right there, which is beautiful. Okay. So, the color that you're looking at here, this is the dark gray. We also have classic black. Sorry, a little fuzz here. And then we've sewn up a couple swatches so you can sort of see how that all looks together with the lining. So each color has a couple different lining options. So this is one of them. Then we also have a light gray.
I love
This is what we're using currently for the sew along. It is so nice to work with. It just presses really beautifully. So you'll see a lot of this fabric if you look at the sew along. Again, here's this color combo. We also have a dark navy. You can see that it's navy. It's pretty dark, but it is navy. This combo is this is like a slightly lighter navy with the fuchsia piping. So pretty. And then we have magenta. It's looking a little bit more red on here, but it's a little bit more purple than that. It's kind of hard to tell. This is our favorite color from the team and appears to be the most popular kit colors so far, which we're very happy about. And then here's one of the options. So you've got a navy lining, and then a silver piping. And then last but not least, we also have this color that we're calling Cumin. It's like a light brown with a slightly green tint to it. We have much better photos of these on the website. So if the color doesn't look quite right to you, that definitely check that out. And then here's one of the color combos for that. So as you can tell, we're obsessed with this lining. So those are the 6 colors. Again, each of the colors has a couple different lining options. So let me now show you exactly what's included in the kit. So it's quite a bit.
Someone asked if Cumin is similar to khaki or tan. Yes, it's actually sold by the wholesaler as camel, but we felt it didn't quite meet what people's expectation of camel was. So that's why we didn't call it that. But yes, khaki was another name we considered calling it.
Yeah. It's a slightly greener version of camel.
Yeah.
All right. So you get the melted wool. This is, I think, 3.5 yards of it, quite a bit. So this is enough to make any size of the Auburn Blazer. So that's kind of the base fabric there. You also then get the lining. Oops. I think this is 2 3/4 yards of the lining. So this is the navy one that we're looking at. So this is the silk cotton wall, right? And then the printed one that you saw in this one is a satin, poly satin. So you get that, and then you get the bias tape. So as Jenny was mentioning, this is has like a satiny kind of look to it. You get a couple yards of that so that you can do the piping if you want. Then there's also the pocketing. So we have just a standard black for this because it's not going to show through any of the linings that we have for that. And then we've also matched different button colors with each of the outer fabrics. So I'll just show you one of them. Has like a nice kind of marbly look to it. This is the dark brown, I think. So it comes with one 1-inch button and then 6 of these smaller buttons that you can use on the sleeve vent if you would like. Okay, so that's the main bits of it. And then in addition to that, there's all the inner bits. So these you can also get as a standalone kit if you already have in your stash the main fabric, you have the lining, you just need the inner bits. You can also get just this. And this also comes with the buttons and you can choose between 4 different button colors. So let me show you what's in that. So the full kits have all of this, just to be clear. Okay, so then we have this stabilizing tape that Jenny mentioned. So it's fusible on one side, just standard white, non-stretch. Very nice to work with. Then we've got shoulder pads. These are 3/8 inch, right, Jenny?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again,
they're the ones I think that I have in this blazer.
Yeah. So these are the standard black. Again, they're not going to show through any of the linings that we have. Then we have a cut of knit interfacing. So the nice thing about these kits is, we're giving you exactly what you need to make your blazer. You don't have to buy like a ton of yardage of each of these things. So I think you might be able to see that it's knit. So it's definitely stretchy. It looks different from the weft interfacing, which I'll show you next. So when you get this kit, it'll be pretty clear to you which is which. So don't worry about that. So this has a slightly different kind of look to it. So this is woven and does not stretch. And then on the back, it's a little bit gray. So this is the fusible side. And then last but not least, we have the horsehair canvas. So this is in a lighter color. It's like I called it like a natural color. It's fusible on one side. You can feel the little dots. And it's just enough to make the 2 chest shield pieces. So
This is one of the nice things actually about buying a kit, is that we just, like, horsehair canvas interfacing is actually really expensive. We just give you the swatch that you need, rather than you having to order like half a yard or a yard. It might cost you like $25, $30. So one of the bonuses of a kit.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and then again, it also comes with your choice of button color. So those are the main kits, and also the notions kits. And in addition to that, we're also selling the Melton wool by the quarter yard. So that way, if you have all the notions, if you have your lining, you just want like a really nice, high quality main fabric, you can get exactly the amount that you need without all the other bits in the size that you're making. So
we also have someone who's already bought extra to make a skirt to make a full suit, and that I thought was a clever idea. We think that it's a bit on the thick side for trousers. You could, but they would be like chunky wool chunky winter trousers, but skirt definitely would work.
Yep. So yeah, so those are all the kits. So these are all on pre-order, as Jenny mentioned. So there's 16 total combinations of main fabric and lining, although some of them have already sold out, but definitely check out all the different combinations. Click into each one and see all the different ones that we've included, because we had a lot of fun pairing different options together.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ayala.
Mm-hmm.
So we are nearing the end. So I'm going to answer a few other questions that just came through, and then I'll share with you some of the offers that we have for the launch. So we were asked, do you need to put all the interfacing in your muslin too? No, you don't need to. Now, will it be slightly different than it will eventually be because you don't have that interfacing in? Yes, but it's like I mentioned, like, you need the proportions to be right. You need where the shoulder is to be right. But don't worry too much about like, oh, there's a small drag line under my right armpit when I stand like this. No, don't worry about that. It'll be fine when you make it in your final fabric. And it's sort of the same with the interfacing. When you put the interfacing in, it'll look even better, but you don't need to. You do, however, need to pin your shoulder pads in, because that actually affects the fit of the blazer. So someone was asking, will we be restocking kits in the future? Probably not. I would not expect that we are. So if you want one, you should order it now. So I wanted to share a couple of final things. So the first thing is we actually set up a specific Facebook group just for the Auburn Blazer. So when you're on Facebook, you can type in Cashmerette Auburn Sewalong, or you can go to cashmerette.com/groups/Cashmerette Auburn. And in there, this is the name of the day. And we pop in a couple of times a day. We answer questions. We've already had one person put their wearable muslin in, which was kind of amazing. I was like, I would have that in my wardrobe, guys. So you can see other people's, share yours, get feedback, get help, and so on. So that's great if you're on Facebook. Not everyone is, but if you are. So at the moment, if you order the print pattern of the Auburn Blazer, you will also get the PDF for free. The reason we're doing this is you may have heard that basically the main, in fact, only tissue printer in the world shut down for several months last year. So there is still really big delays on getting things printed. So we're expecting them in June, which is when we'll send everything out. But in the meantime, if you pre-order it now, we will send you the PDF straight away. The PDF has several benefits. You can print at home, or you can send it to a printer. And we actually have a blog post with a really big roundup of printers all around the world that do reasonably priced PDF printing. Do not go to Staples or Kinko's. They will try and charge you $45. But there are places that will do it much, much, much cheaper than that. It also means you automatically get updates when they come out. So we know if we ever expand sizes, or if we ever do like an additional piece, or we ever realize something needs to be adjusted a little bit, you just get it automatically. If you buy the print pattern, you also can, but you have to contact us. This way you get it automatically for life. You can also print it off if you want to make a different size, because your body changes, or you're making it for your mum, you can instantly print it off. And it's also a layered file. So what that means is you can open it up, and there's instructions on how to do this, and only select the sizes that you want to make. So maybe you're a straight size something, 20, pick that. If you're a 20 graded to 26, you can pick those two. It makes it so much easier to use a pattern. If you've only ever used printed patterns that are nested, you will be shocked by how much easier it is to use a layered PDF file. We also have a huge amount of guidance on our website, all written by Ayelet, of how to use PDF patterns. So if you haven't done it before, we have tons and tons and tons of help on how you do that. So that's the offer at the moment. If you buy it, you will get the PDF as well. Sometimes people are getting confused and they're emailing us and saying, I didn't buy a PDF. And we're saying, it's free. You're welcome. And then finally, you can get 15% off our kits. So use code Auburn15 at checkout. It runs through next Friday. It is a bargain. Someone in our Facebook group like did the math and they realized, because we're not the only people in the world to carry all of this, right? They figured out like, oh, that's this fabric, and they added it up and they were like, it's a bargain. You should buy it from Cashmerette. And I agree. As I mentioned already, like it can be hard getting the notions. You often have to go to different shops. They all want to charge you shipping. You can't get the exact amount you want anyway. They're forcing you to buy more. So a kit's just a really, really nice way to just get exactly what you need. It's going to work. It's going to result in a quality blazer. There's no like risk that you didn't buy the right interfacing or something like this. So personally, I love kits. Obviously, I would say that they're my kits, but there they are. And if you do want to order one, do it soon because we're starting to already run out of things that are available. So that was everything that I planned to share. So let me just have a look and see if there's any final questions. So do you ship kits outside the US? Yes, we do, but it's expensive. Sorry. I mean, shipping, you saw Ayelet hold it up. You saw how big it is and it's heavy. It's like a box this big. So we ship them anywhere in the world. We've already got orders from like the US and Australia, but the shipping cost is quite high. It may still work out to be a great option for you if locally you don't have this available. We just charge what USPS or DHL, UPS charge us. But yeah, heads up, it's expensive outside the US. Can you use Sewin interfacing instead of Fusible? Absolutely, yes. This is a classic blazer pattern, right? It's like absolutely classic. What that means is you can do anything to it that you could do to a classic blazer pattern. You could use sew-ins, you could hand tailor it, you could do pad stitching, you could take all the edges, you could do like full shoulder structure. Really, the world is your oyster. You can put a backstay in because it really is just like the classic design, but adjusted for plus sizes and for curves, right? So we know that the proportions will look really good and it will actually fit on you very well, unlike most blazer patterns if you're plus size. I had a couple of questions about lengthening or even making it into a coat. Absolutely. We have lengthen and shorten lines on all the pieces. So if you want to change the style to being like a longer coat, you can do that. Just cut it and extend it to where you want it to be. I'd make a muslin, but yeah, you can do that. If you are shortening or lengthening because of your height, like Coco mentioned that she's 5'3", this is a bit more nuanced. So our patterns are designed for 5'6", but that does not mean if you're 5'3", you take 3 inches off. 2 reasons. First of all, if you're 5'3", the difference is probably not all in where you wear a blazer, right? It's like through your body. But it depends on your proportions. So for instance, Dawn, who I have seen is in here right now, is 5'10", maybe 11. She's a tall woman, but she doesn't actually need to lengthen things because it's not in her torso. So if she makes something like a blazer, she doesn't lengthen it at all, even though she's 5'10". On the flip side, we have a 5'2" tester who doesn't shorten our tops because all of her petiteness is in her legs. And so she actually doesn't need to. You could also be 5'6", but be really super short-waisted and need to shorten it. So you see where I'm going here. It matters where your proportions are more than your absolute height. If you are like 6'5", yes, you're probably going to have to lengthen it. But again, not necessarily. There we go. Donna's come in and said exactly. She actually shortens and she is 5'10". So if you are a different height, like significantly off 5'6", or you know that your proportions are a bit different, you can compare the measurements. So we have the back length. So you can measure your back length and say, is that where I'd want it to be? Or you can make a muslin and see. So it's actually one of the more simple adjustments. But to me, like isn't that one of the like to me, grading between sizes and lengthening and shortening are like these overlooked amazing things about sewing, because you get used to it when you've been sewing a long time. But if you really think about it, the number of times you try and buy something in a shop and it's too short or it's too long, or the sleeves are too short or long, or you're like, but I have size 28 boobs and a size 20 waist, nothing fits me. Like, these theoretically quite minor adjustments actually have like a really radical effect on how things fit and then how you'll feel.
Jenny, can
Yes.
I jump in there for 2 seconds to say, kind of for me, because I've got quite a short torso, I used to think I needed to grade out at the hips, and then I started shortening patterns where they should be shortened in the middle, and then suddenly the hip was in the right place on my body, and then I realized actually the horizontal measurements are fine, it's they're sitting in the wrong place. So yeah, that whole thing about proportions is so important, and it's definitely not hard and fast if you're 5'3", take off 3 inches.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a great point, Coco. And that's exactly it, right? Like, if you just, and also that's why you need to lengthen or shorten at the lines and not just at the hem. Because if you take the hem up, you're changing the shape, and we want to maintain the shape. Obviously, there are like extremes, right? Where like you're so different that you're going to have to like work on it a little bit more. But broadly speaking, use the length and shorten lines. Kelly asked if we have the measurements available. Yes, we do. So if you go and look on our website, on the product listing, it has it all there. It's also on the pattern itself. We tell you the various measurements, including the bicep size, the sleeve length, which is the under sleeve length here. And we tell you the back length as well. Obviously, people do fitting in different ways. I personally am a big fan of making a muslin for lots and lots of reasons. But if you prefer to like take thousands of measurements and then compare them to the pattern, you can also do that. Again, I don't really recommend jumping into super expensive fabric immediately, unless you make lots of our stuff and you feel very confident what you are. So for instance, it may surprise you to hear, guys, make a lot of cashmere patterns. And I know that I almost always fit in an 18GH, almost always, doesn't really matter what the pattern is. So I will just dive straight in and do that. But there you go. So that is that. I hope you enjoyed it. This is being recorded and it's going to go up on YouTube. So if anyone missed any points, they can come back and look at it. You can always reach us. We have very active customer service with Mallory, who is on the call, on this call as well. You can email us anytime at hello@cashmerette.com. We help people all the time. You can join our Cashmerette community groups on Facebook. We have 2. We have one that's the full for people size 0 to 32, and one that's just plus size 12 to 32. And we have the Auburn Blazer one, as we mentioned. And so you can get like community feedback there as well. If you're having a bad day, post a picture of yourself. Everyone will tell you you're super awesome. It's just a nice thing to do, you know? Yeah, so super glad to have you all here. I'm really looking forward to seeing blazers. As I said, I already saw one, which is kind of nuts, like 5 days after we launched it. But yeah, looking forward to them. I want to make a jacquard one. I want to make a light gray one. I don't know when I'm going to do that. I'm also developing other patterns. And I'm a single parent of a 2-year-old, but it's good to have ambitions, guys. It's good to have ambitions. So goodbye, everybody. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll see your blazers soon. Bye.